The boss gave an expensive dress to the janitor and took her to an important negotiation. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Invitation. The autumn rain hammered against the glass windows of the Thompson & Associates building in downtown Chicago. It was 7:30 p.m., and most employees had already left, leaving behind only the dim glow of emergency lights in the hallways. Martha Collins, 52, pushed her cleaning cart through the executive floor, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished marble. Martha had worked as a janitor in that building for almost 15 years. Her calloused hands told the story of a hard life, a widow who raised 2 children alone after her husband died in a construction accident. Her daughter was now in nursing school, and her son worked at a supermarket while studying at community college at night. Every penny Martha earned went toward their futures. "Still here, Mrs. Collins?" a deep voice echoed through the hallway. Martha turned to see Richard Thompson himself, the CEO of the investment firm, standing at his office door. At 45, Richard was known for his sharp business sense, and surprisingly, for knowing the names of every employee in the building, something rare among executives of his level. "Just finishing up the executive floor, Mr. Thompson," Martha replied with a respectful smile, adjusting her faded blue uniform. Richard looked at her for a moment as if weighing something important. "Mrs. Collins, could you come into my office for a moment? I need to discuss something with you." Martha felt her heart race. In 15 years, she'd never been called into the CEO's office. Her mind immediately went to the worst. Had she done something wrong? Was she going to be fired? Hey, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We bring you incredible real-life stories every week. She followed Richard into the spacious office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the Chicago skyline, with lights twinkling like earthbound stars. The furniture was elegant but not ostentatious, dark wood and leather that exuded quiet confidence. "Please, sit down." Richard gestured to one of the chairs facing his desk. Martha sat carefully, her hands clasped nervously in her lap. "Is everything all right, sir?" Richard leaned against his desk, his expression serious but not unkind. "Mrs. Collins, I'll be direct. Tomorrow I have the most important negotiation of my career. I'm meeting with the Yamamoto Corporation from Tokyo. They're considering a partnership that could triple our firm's value." Martha nodded slowly, not understanding where this was going. "The thing is," Richard continued, running a hand through his graying hair, "my executive assistant had a family emergency and had to fly to Boston tonight. My secretary is in the hospital with appendicitis, and my business partner, who was supposed to accompany me to this dinner, tested positive for COVID this afternoon." "I'm so sorry to hear that, Mr. Thompson," Martha said sincerely. "I need someone to accompany me to this dinner tomorrow night," Richard said, his eyes fixed on hers. "Someone with integrity, someone authentic, someone who understands the value of hard work. Mrs. Collins, I'd like you to be that person." Martha's eyes widened. "Me? But sir, I'm just a janitor. I don't know anything about business negotiations or—" "Exactly," Richard interrupted gently. "The Yamamoto Corporation values authenticity above all else. Mr. Yamamoto specifically requested that I bring someone who represents the true heart of our company, not just another executive in an expensive suit. I've watched you for years, Mrs. Collins. The way you treat people, the dedication you show, the dignity you bring to your work. That's what I need tomorrow. If you think Martha should accept this incredible opportunity, hit that like button right now." Martha felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Mr. Thompson, I don't even have appropriate clothes for something like that. This uniform is—" Richard walked over to an elegant shopping bag sitting on his credenza. "Which is why I took the liberty of having my personal shopper select something appropriate. There's a dress here along with shoes and accessories. Size 14, right?" Martha's jaw dropped. How did he know her size? Seeing her confusion, Richard smiled slightly. "Mrs. Ramirez from HR mentioned it once when discussing the uniform inventory. I pay attention, Mrs. Collins." He handed her the bag. Through the tissue paper, Martha could see emerald green fabric. Silk, by the look of it. Her hands trembled as she accepted it. "I can't accept this, sir. This must have cost—" "Consider it a business expense," Richard said firmly. "Mrs. Collins, I'm not asking you to pretend to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, a hardworking, honest woman who represents the values this company was built on. Mr. Yamamoto wants to see the real America, the people who make companies like ours function. You are that person. Martha looked down at the bag in her hands, then back at Richard. In his eyes, she saw not pity, but genuine respect. It was a look she hadn't received from many people in positions of power. "What would I need to do?" she asked quietly. "Just be yourself," Richard replied. "Join us for dinner at the Sterling Room tomorrow at 7 p.m. Listen, share your perspective if asked, and help me show Mr. Yamamoto what Thompson & Associates is really about. I'll brief you on some basic information about the partnership, but honestly, your authenticity is far more valuable than any scripted responses." The rain continued to fall outside, but inside that office, something extraordinary was happening. Martha thought about her children, about the sacrifices she'd made, about the years of being invisible to so many people in this building. "All right, Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice stronger now. "I'll do it." Richard's face broke into a genuine smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Meet me here tomorrow at 6 p.m. We'll go over some details before heading to the restaurant." As Martha left the office, clutching the shopping bag, she felt as if she were in a dream. She took the service elevator down to the basement, where the janitor's break room was located. The fluorescent lights flickered as they always did, and the smell of industrial cleaning products filled the air. She carefully opened the shopping bag. Inside was not just a dress, but a complete outfit. An elegant emerald green dress in flowing silk, simple but sophisticated, a pair of black heels with a modest heel height, a delicate silver necklace, and even a small clutch purse. There was also a note in elegant handwriting. "Mrs. Collins, authenticity is the most valuable currency in any negotiation. Thank you for your years of dedication. RT." Martha sat down on the worn bench, the dress draped across her lap, and allowed herself a moment to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but of recognition, of being seen, perhaps truly seen, for the first time in years. Comment below what city you're watching from. We love knowing where our viewers are located. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter, Elena. "Mom, just finished my shift at the hospital. How was work?" Martha looked at the dress, at the note, at the surreal turn her ordinary evening had taken. She typed back, "Mija, you won't believe what just happened. Call me when you get home. I have something incredible to tell you." That night, in her small apartment in Pilsen, Martha tried on the dress. It fit perfectly. She looked at herself in the mirror, really looked, and saw not just a tired janitor, but a woman with dignity, with strength, with a story worth telling. Tomorrow, she would step into a world she'd only cleaned, never inhabited. Tomorrow, she would sit at a table where business empires were built and deals worth millions were made. Tomorrow, Martha Collins would be more than invisible. But tonight, she hung the dress carefully in her closet, said a prayer of thanks, and allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, hard work and integrity really could open doors, even for someone like her. Outside, the Chicago rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean, preparing the city for a new day. And somewhere in a high-rise apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, Richard Thompson reviewed his notes for tomorrow's negotiation, confident that he'd made the right choice. The stage was set, the players were ready, and tomorrow would prove whether authenticity could indeed be the key to success in the ruthless world of corporate negotiations. Chapter 2. The Sterling Room. The next day passed in a blur for Martha. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with anxiety and excitement in equal measure. After finishing her morning shift, she insisted on working, despite Richard's suggestion that she take the day off. She went home to prepare. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We're building an amazing community here. Elena had come over to help her mother get ready. At 24, Elena had inherited her father's artistic eye and her mother's practical wisdom. She styled Martha's silver-streaked hair into an elegant updo, applied subtle makeup that enhanced her mother's natural features and helped her into the emerald dress. "Mama, you look like royalty," Elena whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. Martha's son David had taken time off from his supermarket shift to see his mother before she left. At 21, he was the pragmatic one, but even he seemed moved by the transformation. Mom, just remember, you earned this moment, David said, hugging her carefully so as not to wrinkle the dress. You've worked harder than anyone I know. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong there. At 5:45 p.m., Martha stood outside the Thompson & Associates building, her heart pounding. She'd taken an Uber, another first for her, because she couldn't imagine taking the bus in this outfit. The doorman, Carlos, who she'd exchanged greetings with for years, did a double take. Mrs. Collins, you look absolutely stunning, Carlos said warmly, holding the door open for her. Thank you, Carlos, Martha replied, grateful for his kindness. She took the executive elevator, not the service elevator she'd used for 15 years, up to the top floor. The doors opened to reveal Richard Thompson waiting for her, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy suit. Mrs. Collins, he said with an approving smile. You look perfect. Elegant and authentic. Exactly what we need tonight. For the next 30 minutes, Richard briefed Martha on the basics of the Yamamoto Corporation partnership. They were a Tokyo-based investment firm looking to expand into the American market, specifically interested in sustainable infrastructure projects. Richard's firm specialized in connecting investors with community development initiatives. Mr. Yamamoto is 68 years old, Richard explained. He built his company from nothing after World War II devastated his family's fortunes. He values hard work, honesty, and genuine human connection above all else. His English is excellent, though he sometimes prefers to speak through his translator, Mr. Tanaka, when discussing business details. What should I talk about if he asks me questions? Martha asked nervously. The truth, Richard said simply. Your life, your work, your values. Trust me, Mrs. Collins, your story is more compelling than any corporate presentation I could give. Hit that like button if you think honesty is always the best policy. They arrived at the Sterling Room at 6:55 p.m. Martha had walked past this restaurant countless times on her way to work, never imagining she'd step inside. The exterior was understated elegance, a discreet brass plaque beside a heavy oak door. Inside, the atmosphere was refined but warm. Exposed brick walls, soft jazz playing in the background, and tables spaced far enough apart to ensure private conversation. The maitre d' greeted them warmly. Mr. Thompson, your party has already arrived. Mr. Yamamoto is at your usual table. As they walked through the restaurant, Martha noticed the other diners, executives, politicians, people of obvious wealth and influence. Several heads turned to watch them pass, and Martha felt a flutter of panic. What was she doing here? Then she saw him. Mr. Yamamoto, a distinguished elderly gentleman with silver hair and kind eyes, sitting ramrod straight in his chair. Beside him was a younger man, presumably Mr. Tanaka, and a woman in her 40s who Richard had mentioned was Mr. Yamamoto's daughter and business successor, Keiko. Mr. Yamamoto stood as they approached, a gesture of respect that surprised Martha. Richard made the introductions. Mr. Yamamoto, may I present Mrs. Martha Collins, who has been with Thompson & Associates for 15 years. Mr. Yamamoto bowed slightly, and Martha instinctively returned the gesture, remembering something she'd once seen in a documentary. A flicker of approval crossed the elderly man's face. Mrs. Collins, it is an honor to meet you, Mr. Yamamoto said in accented but clear English. Please, sit. As they settled into their seats, Martha noticed Mr. Yamamoto studying her with keen interest. The initial small talk was polite but somewhat formal, covering topics like the weather, the restaurant's excellent reputation, and Chicago's architecture. Then Mr. Yamamoto set down his water glass and looked directly at Martha. Mrs. Collins, Mr. Thompson tells me you have been with his company for 15 years. What is it that you do there? Martha felt all eyes on her. This was the moment Richard had prepared her for, yet her throat felt tight. She took a breath and decided to follow his advice. Tell the truth. I'm a janitor, Mr. Yamamoto, she said clearly. I clean the offices, maintain the floors, empty the trash, and make sure everything is ready for the employees when they arrive each morning. There was a pause. Mr. Tanaka glanced at Richard with an expression Martha couldn't quite read, but Mr. Yamamoto's face softened into a warm smile. A janitor, he repeated thoughtfully. Mrs. Collins, when I was a young man, just after the war, my family had lost everything. I worked as a cleaner in an American military office in Tokyo. It was there I learned English and watched how American businessmen conducted themselves. That job, that humble job, taught me everything I needed to know about building my company. Martha felt something relax in her chest. It's honest work, she said. I take pride in it. As you should, Mr. Yamamoto replied. Tell me, in 15 years, what have you observed about Mr. Thompson's company? Comment below what you think Martha should say. We love hearing your opinions. Martha thought carefully. I've watched this company grow from 30 employees to over 200. I've seen Mr. Thompson come in at 5 a.m. when there was a crisis, and I've seen him stay until midnight to make sure a deal was done right. I've cleaned offices where people left thank you notes for projects that helped their communities. I've seen employees treated with respect, from the executives to the security guards. I've seen a company that doesn't just talk about values, it lives them. Richard looked surprised. Martha had gone beyond anything they'd discussed, but she wasn't finished. I've also seen the mistakes, she continued. I've found documents left on printers about projects that failed or deals that fell through. I've overheard arguments and seen the stress on people's faces during difficult times. But what I've never seen, not once in 15 years, is anyone cutting corners or treating people as disposable. That matters to me because I know what it's like to be treated as disposable. The table was silent. Keiko was leaning forward, completely engaged. Mr. Tanaka had stopped taking notes. Mr. Yamamoto's eyes glistened slightly. You speak with great honesty, Mrs. Collins, Mr. Yamamoto said softly. In my experience, the people who see the most in a company are not always in the boardroom. They are the ones who clean up after meetings, who hear the unguarded conversations, who witness both the triumphs and the failures. You are the conscience of Mr. Thompson's company. Martha hadn't thought of it that way, but she nodded. I suppose that's true. I see everything, the good, the bad, and the real. And what is the real? Mr. Yamamoto asked, leaning forward. Martha met his gaze steadily. The real is that Mr. Thompson built a company that wants to make a difference, not just make money. I've seen the community projects, the affordable housing developments, the clean energy initiatives, the programs that help people like me and my children build better lives. I can't speak to the business side of things, but I can tell you that the heart of this company is good. Keiko spoke for the first time. Her English flawless. Mrs. Collins, may I ask, do you have children? 2, Martha replied with a proud smile. My daughter Elena is in nursing school, and my son David is studying business administration while working full-time. My husband passed away 12 years ago, so I raised them alone. That must have been very difficult, Keiko said sympathetically. It was, Martha admitted. There were nights I didn't know how we'd make rent, or how I'd pay for their school supplies. But I had this job, steady, honest work, and that made all the difference. Mr. Thompson gave me raises based on performance, not just tenure. He made sure all employees, even janitors, had health insurance. When my daughter needed an emergency surgery 3 years ago, the company's insurance covered it. That's why I say the heart of this company is good, because I've lived it. Subscribe to our channel right now if this story is touching your heart. Don't miss our next incredible tale. The waiter arrived with their appetizers, but the business conversation had clearly taken a back seat to something more meaningful. As they ate, Mr. Yamamoto shared stories of his own journey from poverty to success, drawing parallels with Martha's experiences. The conversation flowed naturally, touching on topics like integrity, the meaning of success, and the responsibility of businesses to their communities. Richard watched in quiet amazement. He'd hoped Martha's presence would humanize the negotiation, but she'd done something far more powerful. She'd created a genuine connection based on shared values and mutual respect. As the main course was served, Martha had never tasted anything so delicious in her life. Mr. Yamamoto turned to Richard. Mr. Thompson, I have been in business for over 40 years. I have negotiated with hundreds of companies, reviewed thousands of proposals, and met countless executives who promised me the world. But tonight, you have shown me something rare. You have shown me the soul of your company. By bringing Mrs. Collins to this meeting, you have demonstrated the values you claim to hold. You have shown me that you do not just work with numbers and projections, you work with people. Richard nodded solemnly. Mr. Yamamoto, I won't pretend this was just a symbolic gesture. I genuinely wanted you to meet someone who represents what we're really about. Mrs. Collins has been the backbone of our operations for years, and she deserved to be part of this conversation. Mr. Yamamoto smiled and raised his glass of wine. Then let us toast, not to business, not to profits, but to the people who make all success possible. To Mrs. Collins, and to all the hard-working people like her who are the true foundation of any worthy enterprise. They all raised their glasses. Martha felt tears threatening again, but she held them back, allowing herself instead to feel the weight of this extraordinary moment. As dessert was served, an exquisite chocolate creation that seemed almost too beautiful to eat, Keiko engaged Martha in conversation about her children's dreams and aspirations. Mr. Yamamoto and Richard began discussing the specifics of the partnership, but it was clear that the foundation had been laid. The evening concluded with handshakes all around. Mr. Yamamoto took Martha's hand in both of his, a gesture of deep respect in Japanese culture. Mrs. Collins, you have given me a great gift tonight, he said. You have reminded me why I do this work. Not for money or power, but to create opportunities for people like you and your children to build better lives. Thank you. The honor was mine, Mr. Yamamoto. Martha replied sincerely. As Richard and Martha left the restaurant and walked to where his driver was waiting, he turned to her with an expression of profound gratitude. Mrs. Collins, you were extraordinary. You said exactly what needed to be said, and you did it with such grace and honesty. I couldn't have asked for a better partner tonight. Did it go well, then? Martha asked. The business part, I mean. Richard laughed. Mrs. Collins, I'm fairly certain we just secured the partnership. Mr. Yamamoto will still need to review the formal proposal, but after tonight, I'm confident he'll move forward. And it's because of you. The drive back to Martha's apartment in Pilsen felt surreal. As the Chicago skyline sparkled against the night sky, Martha reflected on the evening's events. She'd been nervous, certainly, but she'd also felt something she hadn't experienced in years: valued. When she arrived home, Elena and David were waiting up for her, eager to hear every detail. Martha told them the whole story, watching their faces light up with pride. Mom, you're amazing, David said, shaking his head in wonder. You went into that room and showed them who you really are. And that was enough, Elena added softly. Just being yourself was enough. Martha hugged her children, thinking about Mr. Yamamoto's words, Richard's gratitude, and the unlikely series of events that had led to this remarkable night. She carefully hung the emerald dress in her closet, knowing she'd probably never have occasion to wear it again, but it would hang there as a reminder. That hard work matters, that integrity is valuable, that being seen and respected as a human being, not just a function or a title, is one of life's greatest gifts. Tomorrow, she'd return to her work as a janitor. She'd push her cart through the hallways, clean the offices, and maintain the building. But something had fundamentally changed. She'd sat at a table with powerful people and contributed something valuable. She'd been heard, and that made all the difference. Chapter 3. Ripples of Change. 3 weeks after the dinner at the Sterling Room, Martha arrived at work as usual at 6 a.m. The November cold had settled over Chicago, and she wrapped her thin jacket tighter as she entered through the employee entrance. But something felt different the moment she stepped inside. Carlos, the doorman, greeted her with an unusually broad smile. Mrs. Collins, Mr. Thompson wants to see you in his office when you arrive. He said to come up before you start your shift. Martha's stomach knotted. The magical evening had faded into memory, and she'd returned to her normal routine. Had something gone wrong? Had she somehow embarrassed Mr. Thompson? She took the executive elevator up, her mind racing through possibilities. When she reached Richard's office, his assistant, a new one, since the previous assistant had relocated to Boston, greeted her warmly and ushered her right in. Richard stood as she entered, but he wasn't alone. Sitting in one of the chairs was Jennifer Hayes, the head of human resources, a woman Martha had seen around the building but never spoken to directly. Mrs. Collins, please sit down, Richard said, his expression unreadable. Martha sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. First, I want to thank you again for your participation in the Yamamoto dinner, Richard began. I received confirmation yesterday that they're moving forward with the partnership. It's a $20 million investment in sustainable infrastructure projects across the Midwest. This will allow us to expand our community development initiatives significantly. Martha felt relief wash over her. That's wonderful news, Mr. Thompson. It is, Richard agreed. And Mr. Yamamoto was explicit in his final communication that your presence at that dinner was a deciding factor. He said, and I quote, "A company that values all its employees equally is a company worth investing in." If you're loving how this story is unfolding, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that button now. Jennifer leaned forward. Mrs. Collins, your story, both your background and your insights that evening, made an impression not just on Mr. Yamamoto, but on Mr. Thompson and the entire executive team. We've been having conversations about how we operate as a company and how we can better recognize and develop all our employees, regardless of their positions. Martha wasn't sure where this was going, but she listened carefully. We'd like to offer you a new position, Richard said directly. We're creating a role called Community Liaison Coordinator. Your job would be to work with our community development projects, serving as a bridge between our company and the communities we serve. You'd visit project sites, talk to residents, gather feedback, and help us ensure our initiatives are actually meeting people's needs, not just looking good on paper. Martha's eyes widened. I don't have any training in that kind of work. You have 15 years of experience watching this company operate, Jennifer countered. You have life experience that our executives lack. You understand the challenges facing working families because you've lived them. Mr. Thompson believes, and I agree, that your perspective is exactly what we need. The position comes with a significant salary increase, Richard added. We're offering $58 annually, plus the same benefits package our other coordinators receive, including professional development funds if you want to take courses or training. Martha's current salary was $32 years in dollars. The number Richard had just mentioned seemed impossible. That was more than her late husband had earned at his construction job. I don't know what to say, Martha whispered. Say you'll think about it, Richard replied gently. This isn't charity, Mrs. Collins. This is us recognizing talent and value that's been in this building all along. You've already proven you can represent this company well. Now we're asking you to do it professionally. Martha thought about her children, Elena's tuition, David's student loans, the small apartment they'd lived in for years. She thought about the sleepless nights worrying about money, about the pride she'd always taken in her work, even when others looked past her. Can I ask a question? Martha said. Of course. What happens to my cleaning position? Who will do that work? Richard smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. We're hiring someone new, and we're increasing the starting wage for all our custodial staff by 20%. Your question just proved again why you're right for this new role. You're thinking about the people who come after you. Martha felt tears spilling down her cheeks, and this time she didn't hold them back. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll accept the position. Jennifer stood and shook Martha's hand warmly. Welcome to the team, Mrs. Collins. You start in 2 weeks, which will give us time to hire and train your replacement and get you set up with an office, computer, and everything else you'll need. An office. A computer. Martha had never had either in her entire working life. Comment below if you think Martha made the right decision. We want to hear from you. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Martha worked her remaining cleaning shifts while beginning to transition into her new role. The news spread quickly through the building, and the reactions were overwhelmingly positive. Other custodial staff congratulated her. Administrative assistants she'd never spoken to stopped her in hallways to wish her well, and even some executives made a point to introduce themselves properly. There was only one negative response. Thomas Bradley, a mid-level executive who'd been with the company for 5 years, made a snide comment within Martha's earshot. Guess you don't need an MBA anymore. Just show up to one dinner and get promoted. Martha pretended not to hear, but Richard, who happened to be passing by, did not. He stopped and turned to Thomas. Mr. Bradley, Mrs. Collins has been with this company 3 times longer than you have. She's demonstrated loyalty, integrity, and insight that frankly surpasses many people in this building. If you have a problem with her promotion, We can discuss it in my office." Thomas paled and muttered an apology. Martha caught Richard's eye and nodded her thanks. On Martha's first official day in her new role, she arrived to find her office ready, a modest space with a window overlooking the street, a desk with a computer, and a nameplate that read, "Martha Collins, Community Liaison Coordinator." Elena and David had come early to see it, and they stood in the doorway, beaming with pride. "Mom, you have a nameplate," David said, his voice choked with emotion. "And a window," Elena added. "Mom, you have a real office." Martha sat in her chair, and looked around the space. It wasn't large or luxurious, but it was hers. A place where she belonged, where her voice mattered, where her work was valued. Her first assignment was to visit a community center in Englewood that Thompson and Associates was helping to renovate. She took public transportation there, just as she always had. But this time she carried a company laptop in a bag slung over her shoulder and business cards with her name and title. At the community center, she met with residents who would benefit from the renovation: single mothers, elderly residents, teenagers looking for safe spaces. She listened to their concerns, took notes on their suggestions, and promised to bring their voices back to the company. "You really going to listen to us?" asked a suspicious teenager named Marcus. "I am," Martha replied. "Because not that long ago, I was you. I was someone people overlooked, someone whose opinion didn't seem to matter. But it does matter. Your life, your needs, your dreams, they all matter. And I'm going to make sure this company remembers that." Something in her tone convinced him. Over the next hour, Marcus opened up about what the community really needed. Not just a renovated building, but programs that addressed real issues: job training, mental health resources, safe activities for young people. Martha took detailed notes and brought them back to her first strategy meeting with Richard and the development team. When she presented the community's feedback, the executives listened carefully, adjusting their plans to incorporate the suggestions. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to have their voice heard. 3 months into her new role, Martha attended a company-wide meeting where Richard announced the successful launch of the Yamamoto Partnership's first project, a sustainable housing development in Austin that would provide affordable homes for 200 families. "This partnership happened because we remembered what we're really about," Richard told the assembled employees. "We're not just moving money around on spreadsheets, we're changing lives. And I want to specifically acknowledge Martha Collins, whose authenticity and insight helped secure this partnership and who continues to ensure we stay connected to the communities we serve." The room erupted in applause. Martha, sitting in the third row, no longer in the back, no longer invisible, felt overwhelmed by the moment. After the meeting, several employees approached her with questions and comments. One young analyst named Priya asked, "Mrs. Collins, how do you transition from one role to a completely different one? I'm trying to move from data analysis to client relations, but I feel stuck." Martha thought for a moment. "You know what I learned? Skills can be taught, but character can't. You already have the analytical skills, that's valuable. Now you just need to show them you have the people skills too. Volunteer for projects that involve client interaction. Ask questions. Listen more than you talk. And never forget where you started, because that perspective is your strength, not your weakness." Priya nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you. That really helps." Martha realized something profound in that moment. She wasn't just doing a job now, she was mentoring, inspiring, showing others that change was possible. 6 months after her promotion, Martha received an unexpected phone call. It was Keiko Yamamoto, calling from Tokyo. "Mrs. Collins, I hope I'm not disturbing you," Keiko said warmly. "I wanted to let you know that my father has been telling your story to other business leaders in Japan. He says you represent what authentic business partnership looks like. Several companies have reached out, interested in investing in community development projects because they were inspired by your story." Martha was stunned. "I just told the truth about my life, Miss Yamamoto." "Exactly," Keiko replied. "In a world of corporate speak and manufactured images, truth is revolutionary. My father wanted me to tell you that you've created ripples that extend far beyond that dinner at the Sterling Room. You've changed how people think about value and who deserves a seat at the table." After the call ended, Martha sat quietly in her office, processing those words. Ripples. She'd just been trying to do her job, to be honest, to survive and provide for her children. She hadn't set out to change anything, but maybe that was the point. Maybe real change didn't come from grand gestures, but from small moments of authenticity, from seeing and valuing each person's dignity, from recognizing that everyone has something to contribute. That evening, Martha had dinner with Elena and David in their apartment. Though now, thanks to her new salary, they'd been able to move to a slightly larger place with 2 bedrooms instead of 1. "Mom, there's something we want to tell you," Elena said as they finished eating. David nodded. "We've been talking, and we realize that we've watched you work yourself to exhaustion for years, always putting us first. But you never gave up on your own dignity, your own worth. You taught us that how you do anything is how you do everything. Because of you," Elena continued, "I'm going to graduate nursing school debt-free. Because of you, David has been able to focus on his studies. Because of you, we know what integrity looks like. And now," David added, "because of what happened to you, we know that hard work and staying true to yourself really can pay off. Not always, maybe. Not for everyone, maybe. But sometimes. And that's enough to keep hoping." Martha looked at her children, these beautiful humans she'd raised through poverty and grief, and felt a surge of gratitude so intense it was almost painful. "You two are my greatest achievement," she said softly. "Everything I did for you. But you're right. I never compromised who I was. I couldn't afford to. Integrity was the one thing I had that couldn't be taken from me." Don't forget to subscribe if this story has moved you. We share powerful stories like this every week. A year after that fateful dinner at the Sterling Room, Thompson & Associates held its annual gala fundraiser for community development projects. Martha attended, not as a janitor working the event, but as an honored guest and speaker. She wore the emerald dress again, altered slightly by a seamstress to fit her new, slightly healthier frame. She'd been able to afford better food and had even joined a gym. When it was her turn to speak, Martha walked to the podium and looked out at the crowd of executives, investors, and community leaders. A year ago, she would have been terrified. Now, she felt calm and centered. "A year ago," she began, "I was invisible. Tentar novamente esta resposta foi pausada porque Claude atingiu seu limite máximo de caracteres para uma mensagem. Clique em continuar para que Claude prossiga. Continuar. Claude pode cometer erros. Confira sempre as respostas.